It is the Wednesday edition of WWT Live, and today we're talking Breakout, we're talking Breakin. It's a full Euphoria after the draft. All of the things go down today on WWT Live.
This is the biggest. This is the baddest. This is the beast. And you're watching Women's Wrestling Talk.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
Women's Wrestling Talk, the #1 women's wrestling network on the planet.
Happy Wednesday, good people, and welcome to WWT Live as part of Women's Wrestling Talk, the #1 women's wrestling show on the planet. I am your professor, Gerard Bonner, GB, Teflon G, whatever it is you decide to call me today. I'm just happy to be here. I am very happy to be here. It's that kind of day today, folks. And so after the draft, after spring break-in, we got all these things to talk about, hirings, firings, and do you believe? We'll get into all of that. And I've got a full house today. I am super pumped. He's the latest member of the crew. He's from That Wrestling Podcast. Jason is in the building. How are you, sir?
Hey, what's up, man? And because I'm a psycho about following through on the bit, after we got done Monday and my big Papa Pump proclamation of myself with the Women's Wrestling Talk, I went looking for the chainmail hat. I didn't buy it, but I almost did. Almost did. So
maybe the next best bet might be to bleach your facial hair blonde.
Okay, I'll keep that in mind.
That could do it. That could do it. And of course, we have got the greatest. Wrestling with Honey is in the building. How are you, ma'am?
I am wonderful. The sun is shining. It is another day. Let's talk about it.
Absolutely. And for those who missed it, and obviously we will get into this a little bit later, but today was the relaunch, however we look at it, of the official NXT post show. And Honey led the crew, and it was an awesome show today. So you guys can make sure you check that out. 10:30 a.m. Eastern every Wednesday following NXT. And so after this show, you can go back and watch all of the cool things that we said about NXT. And if you talk NXT, we all kind of knew this was going to happen. We have to welcome, who I know he's on a high. Like when you say, like, I almost envision, and I wish I had the video of this because this would be the perfect video for a day like today. The entrance of Seth Rollins into WrestleMania, where he had that big giant band, of like 40 people, and they looked like they were in New Orleans and things like that. That would be the perfect entry for this guy. But since I don't have that, we'll do this. The mayor is here. The mayor is here. Seth, how are you, kind sir?
Oh, yeah, we on time today. We're on time today. Yeah. It's a glorious day. We had to be here in advance. There certainly is a party in the street, a lot of dancing in the street, and you guys know why. We'll get to that a little later.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Very good. Man. Well, we don't have to ask you how you're doing. I mean, I think we would know that unless you lived under a rock. But yes.
I need to see some Reina list updated. I need to see some updated Reina list. I saw some premature data being entered in our group chats. Some revisions.
One win. Well, we will get into all of that for sure, but we will lead today talking about the WWE Draft. We saw night 2 happen Monday, and we saw a few things happen on the socials afterwards. I can run through some of the things that happened from night 2, but before let's just ask the question and rip the Band-Aid off, okay? Because there were certainly a few more moves here and there. We got some moves from NXT into both Raw and SmackDown Monday night. But now that the draft is over, what are your overall thoughts on the WWE draft in terms of hits, misses, that kind of thing? And since we said misses, we must start with Honey.
I appreciate that. I was actually pretty excited for it. I wasn't surprised that Gunther was the first rounder. I did think that they probably would have moved him because I believe I said that when we were predicting who we think would make moves in the draft and such. But Gunther staying on Raw is a plus either way. It's a win-win situation no matter where he goes. I was very excited to hear Ilya Dragunov's name being called, specifically, obviously, to tie that into Gunther. But, you know, if you know, you know. And also, Lyra Valkyria was actually a really cool shock. I realized when I watched back our show of predictions, because I was trying to follow up on everything I was saying, Lyra Valkyria's name came up, and so I was pretty proud of that. I was like, oh my goodness, look at that. So I thought that was pretty cool. I didn't really think of any misses. Okay. I feel like, you know, as we talked about before, sometimes it's about keeping the talent and, you know, the right talent on your roster. So, I mean, overall, it wasn't too, a lot of people would say it wasn't too thrilling, but it was a pretty good night to say the least.
Okay. Jason, your thoughts on the draft?
I thought it was smart to keep Punk and Drew on Raw. I'm glad that I actually got one right, that Braun Strowman got drafted and returned. And I don't know if the guy that was with Logan Paul has ever spoken a microphone before, or maybe he was trying to be too wrestling in his draft choices. But overall, it is what it is. I was listening to the Masked Man show with Kaz, and they were talking, they didn't really like the name draft. They should be like the transfer portal or you know, they're trying to make this as much of pro sports as possible. So draft may not be the right term. And they were talking about like free agency periods and trades. And, you know, when a person like Drew McIntyre, who just signed a new deal for real, maybe make that part of the storyline as well. You know, he has a 2-year deal with Raw or things like that. So while it was good, I do think there are plenty of different ways to improve it as well.
Okay. Sed, your thoughts on the draft?
Very lackluster. I know they're trying to tie it into sports, and to their credit, they definitely, it's always to combat the NFL or at least compete with NFL ratings. I'm a big proponent of NFL draft. I stop everything I'm doing to watch NFL draft every single year. And to the WWE's credit, the first night, I believe they matched up very well in the ratings. So they're doing something right. And there wasn't that much movement as previous years. I think what really took the air out of the draft this year was that champions were protected. So that takes away a layer of like swapping belts and things like that we saw in previous years. But what I'm excited for post-draft is more so the call-ups and the subtle switches. Braun Breaker was signed to SmackDown originally. Now he's on Raw. He'll probably get more runway to be a character. Giovanni Vinci is no longer with Imperium. We'll see that NXT 2.0 character on SmackDown. And then Dijak kind of getting a reboot from Retribution on Monday Night Raw. Those are the things that excite me. But outside of that, we just saw kind of a lot of people being banded together. The factions kind of being banded together and kind of switching spots was the main thing. So not that much of an exciting draft from that regard. But what is also cool is while NXT did not have picks, if you watched NXT yesterday, you'll see that there are stars that will still be in NXT for the foreseeable. Michin, Chelsea Green. So I'm pretty sure we'll start seeing more of that in the men's division as we continue to build it into a legit third brand.
I like it. I've got some ideas about the draft, but I first want to go to some of these comments in the chat because the chat is chatting and that's what we like. Let's see. Dylan is here. Always good to see you. Boza. Boza watched the post show. Thank you so much. Appreciate that. Let's see. Boza says he enjoyed the draft. I think people were upset because champions were protected, much like what you said there, Said. Even down at NXT, the champs were protected. Now that was an interesting wrinkle that we only found out last night on NXT, that the champions were protected, which I think to some degree, if at least the fans knew that, I think our expectations for some of the champions being drafted would have kind of been answered, but that was interesting. Dylan says the draft makes me think that there will be a shakeup around October or November. Eric says happy Backlash and Under Siege week. Same to you, sir. Also 5-6 if you count Mello, but to me he was already on SmackDown. Fit Mission Trick Story. 5 or 6 names left NXT. Last year, 19. The men's division took a big hit in NXT. The women's division is fine. I don't know if they took a big hit. Because I think we all were prepared for Mello to go. We all were prepared for Ilya to go. It only made sense for Corbin and Dijak to kind of get the call back. So I don't know that it was a big hit, and we'll get into some more of that a little bit later. Let's see. Boza, question. If the main roster names were eligible to be sent down to NXT, would the draft have been received better? Well, let's ask the panel that question. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I think
absolutely.
So.
Absolutely, 100%. Because I think we see it every week. There are superstars who kind of deserve a bigger spotlight that maybe aren't getting the W's that we feel like they have, or maybe once had. That NXT would be the perfect platform for that. And it's a smaller, more intimate environment in that NXT arena that fans are always very well receptive to. So even you can take somebody at the bottom of the roster, back of the bench if you want to. They're always going to be well received in NXT. It only makes sense to eventually move to that model.
You know, yeah. I thought that the Ivar Obafemi match was awesome. I'm a big Viking Raiders guy, so the fact that Ivar is getting regular run now, I'm here for it. And I know he's had a good run the last few months while Eric's been injured. But look at the past, though. Men and women that have gone down there and had a bit of a resurgence. Finn Balor, his run when he went back, and then when he returned to the main roster, he was bigger than ever. Becky Lynch, not saying that she was down at any point, but look what she did. She went down there. She won the title, and she gave chances to a lot of these women to get some exposure against, not to be punny, but the big time players in WWE. So I think if SmackDown and Raw men and women would get drafted, I think it would benefit everybody. It'd benefit the show. It'd benefit the talent to get some new eyes on them, and to help the younger talent of NXT.
Not to mention, you even have the Street Profits in there, just in backstage, having their backstage presence. And then on top of that, you have Shayna Baszler there and Natalya there, and now Chelsea Green going at Roxanne. So I don't think it's a bad thing either way, because NXT is redeveloping itself as a top brand at this point and making it a must-see show. So I don't think it would have changed anything about the draft or anything like that, because we were expecting some of the call-ups to happen that did happen anyway.
Yeah, I think there are a few things that probably need to happen relative to this draft. For one, I think if anything, it would be helpful to be able to make a statement that would say any of these stars on Raw or SmackDown could show up at NXT at any given time. Saying that makes things, I think, kind of interesting. The other thing that I think could happen is that we completely revamp this concept of draft, and that the draft only be eligible for NXT stars, so that because if we're going to be like the NFL and the NBA, draft day does not involve swapping members that are currently in the NFL on these major teams. It involves bringing up people from the college ranks and the high school ranks. So if that's the case, it seems to make sense that the WWE draft should focus on who's coming from NXT to Raw or SmackDown. And then they can have something where, there are X number of trades that can happen between Raw and SmackDown as brands themselves. But I personally found there are a couple of things that were exciting to me about the draft. Probably 1A or 1B would be the call-ups from NXT. And I think that was so significant because there was a genuine excitement. And we started talking about this on Monday, where there were people that were asking, do they know? Do they not know? Well, it was very evident Monday night that they did not know, because
especially Blair.
Oh,
I feel like Blair legit didn't know. That's that collegiate
Lyra
environment you're talking about.
Yeah. Several of them did not know. And even when I went back and watched from a different angle, Ilya had to kind of get himself together and go into Ilya mode before he did that, because when it happened, it was like, oh wow, You know,
it did. Yeah.
So it was really awesome to see and hear all of the NXT call-ups, which, of course, if you did not see the Dijak call-up that they posted on their socials, it was really, really
He
cool.
looked like he had like an ace in the hole. Like he had like his agent already tipped him up by text, like, "Oh, you're going here." Had both hands.
So that was great. Of course, Blair, Ilya Dragunov, Lyra Valkyria, and of course, Kiana James. And
you know what they didn't do this year? This is something I wanted to write about in detail, just because I had hoped they would expound upon this a little bit more. I wanted the free agent aspect to have more rules, more detail to it. Whereas like last year we had Omos and then like Lesnar and others, I think Von Wagner, Zion Quinn, they're all free agents, but then they did nothing with that angle. I wanted to see more of that actually make sense this year, where you kind of have them appear on multiple shows, maybe have the GMs kind of like smoozing them a little bit, whining and dining, trying to get them to actually sign pen to paper. I would like that to happen this year. And to my knowledge, I don't think Omos was drafted, was he?
I think him and
not.
MVP backed out, or they weren't eligible for some reason. I feel like I read that somewhere, that they were two guys that were not draft eligible.
I hadn't seen that. Could be possible.
Leaning into that more, because free agency should be a big deal if we want this to feel like sports.
And equally, free agency should be towards someone that it's clear the brands would be interested in signing. Because it seems crazy to me that Omos was a free agent all year long and nobody signed him, you know, and nobody even had the conversation. He wasn't even on TV, you know. So I think that's super, super interesting. I think
Omos
the other
join the bloodline, get rid of MVP.
Oh my goodness.
Omos joining the blood. Oh my gosh. Now, the other takeaway that I want to mention on here, which I think is important, are how certain draft picks were handled. For instance, Jade Cargill and Bianca Belair both being the first round #1 draft picks for SmackDown on night 1 and night 2, which I thought was really amazing to see. Jey Uso being the #1 draft pick for Raw on night 1. Imperium being the #1 draft pick for Raw on night 2. I think those first round kind of draft picks are very, very telling in terms of where WWE sees their future. And so I think that's significant, you know, when we had a Seth Rollins present, when we had, you know, I was going to say a Becky Lynch, but she was a champion and so she was protected. But there are other larger stars that some might have imagined going in that space of the first round draft pick. So congratulations to everyone. Let's see. Jamil the King. I think the draft was a fail. It's beyond predictable. You knew certain talent wasn't going to switch brands. The last good draft I saw was 2005 when Cena went from SmackDown to Raw. Okay. I don't know that it was predictable, but
damn near 20 years ago.
Yeah, I mean, and I'm pretty sure we could go a little more current in terms of seeing which draft, but you know, it's all good. Let's see. Dylan said, I heard there's going to be a couple of trades for the roster. I did hear that as well. I don't know what those trades will entail, so we'll certainly be on the lookout for that. But again, congratulations to everybody involved in the draft. And so coming out of the draft, of course, last night was night 2 of Spring Breakin for NXT. And, you know, we certainly delved into all of that on our NXT post show earlier today. But I did want to talk about this match, the main event of Spring Breakin night 2. Now, a lot of things happened last night, and good Lord, you just have to go to the post show to check out the details about this. But the mayor has put on his glasses, so we know we're going to hear something very, very official, as this was the main event last night. NXT Underground, seeing Lola Vice taking on Natalya, the first ever women's underground match. And I thought it was significant that it certainly served as the main event. I have a couple of questions, and I'm going to start with this question for you, Said. What do you feel was the significance of this underground match main eventing? That's question number 1. And then I'll ask, and I already know how you're going to answer this, but I think there are multiple answers to this. Who really won coming out of this matchup?
Ooh, I'll answer that one first. I'll say the fans won because we're revamping the underground concept. I think the significance of the women having their first underground match just leans into Shawn Michaels knowing that the women's division is the strength of NXT. And leaning into that more and more every single week, knowing that that is the bread and butter of the brand. As far as NXT Underground, let's be honest. Like when NXT Underground was originated, when Shane McMahon was running it and Omos was the doorman, it was very hit or miss. It was kind of in your face, kind of like overdone. And even at points in this last night, I felt like this match was kind of overbooked from what it should be, which is kind of like a shoot fight type of thing. I felt like we're leaning into that. I felt like when the entrances happened, you saw Lola lean into her Bellator days. There was no lashes or makeup or anything like that. There were braids, and she was ready to come to the ring to go to a fight. I felt there were times that you didn't really allow her to flex that technique. Maybe it's just the counterpart and not having enough time to gel that stuff through. But I think we saw what Raw Underground could be as a spectacle. But not Raw Underground, sorry, NXT Underground, as a spectacle. And I hope they continue to bring this out time and time again, kind of as that grudge match. I think the last one we had was Dijak and Eddie Thorpe.
Yes.
It should kind of be kind of that blow off of a feud type of thing. And eventually, so for that type of thing, do it maybe once a quarter. Lola, I genuinely hope Lola gets the Fight Pit as her bread and butter, as her specialty match. I think that would be a little bit more detailed for her. You'll be able to see a little bit more viciousness. I actually thought it was very interesting. I didn't get a chance to tune in with you guys this morning. It was kind of early for me. But also, it's kind of interesting how Shayna was revolving around this. I feel like Shayna couldn't be herself, like her normal dominant NXT self. I feel like they're allowing Carmen and to an extent Natty really have too many one-ups on her. So I'm interested to know what you guys thought about that. But I feel like it kind of all of that surrounding this. I think there's going to be another match because I think that kind of cheapened the win for Lola, if I'm being honest.
Okay, guys, you can respond, and then I'm going to lay things out for the mayor to have his official address.
Yeah, I mean, I particularly like this match. I spoke about it with Boss Lady and Professor earlier today at the post show, but I quite thoroughly enjoyed as far as how they filmed it and the way it was filmed and the way the match was. It just had the whole night honestly had like a big fight feel to it because it was just it was pretty loud from beginning to end. You know, when you open it with Trick and then end with this. But Shayna, I guess the reason why we couldn't really see Shayna be herself, as you said, was because she wasn't even really so much involved in the match. But I feel like if we are going to see another match like this, it would be around Battleground and hopefully Shayna, and Boss Lady mentioned this thoroughly. She said hopefully Shayna will have something to do with that, and we get to see the Shayna we know and love as the Queen of Spades. So I think that's also a possibility, but I kind of enjoyed this match, and I loved Natalya. She looked great. She did what she needed to do. You know, she puts the talent over, and I felt like Lola got to showcase a little bit. This isn't the last of it, but I feel like we're definitely going to see a lot more of it. And, you know, this was just the beginning for Lola, being that she got one up on Natalya this time. Just saying.
Yeah.
You know, said you had mentioned about maybe that Natty didn't have the the grappling or the MMA style to let it be more of that type of match, which is why I feel like that's why they went to the ground. I didn't like that. But overall, I thought the match was entertaining. That damn Shayna Baszler. Natty had this. She had the win, and Shayna had to grab Carmen up, and Natty, being a good person, went after to save her friend. So I believe that the Fight Pit will be next. It was a good presentation. Let's just keep the story going.
Now then, I think the people are really here for this part. So we're going to, I should have had like some perfect theme music for him. So my apologies. But to the mayor, we yield the floor.
Listen,
Jeez.
I've been saying this for so long. Not only do Lola Vice got next, and I'm really upset that this wasn't like vicious. I just got through listening to a very visceral diss track for the past 24 hours. If you know, you know. Canadians are taking L's this week. And we just saw one take an L last night. So back to the Reina rankings that I mentioned yesterday.
Wow.
Here's why Lola Vice should be on your Reina rankings, my fellow WWT constituents, because not one other person on your list made history this month. Lola made history this month and was in the first ever women's underground match. That alone should determine a spot. That alone. That gives one spot on your list. So for that alone, making history, beating a Hall of Famer, I'll tell you that again. She beat a Hall of Famer. And for all my natty slander, no pop and all that, she's still a Hall of Famer. Hall of Famer took an L to a rookie. Let's be honest. Now, further than that, we know this is going to lead to the combine next week. Former MMA athlete, I expect her to body that combine. I expect her to get a spot in the ladder match. I expect her to at least contend for the very first North American Women's Championship. Now, we trained very hard for this match. There was a long fight camp, over 12 weeks, something like that, and we came out on top. Was it the prettiest? No, it wasn't the prettiest, but we got the job done. We worked on the back. I would have liked to see a sharpshooter execution for the finish, but we got a better finish. We got the spinning back fist, and we got hammer elbows, hammer fists. And basically, Natty was out cold. I mean, if you saw JD McDonough's face on Monday night at the rings, I'm pretty sure it looks similar to that. But I don't expect Natty to get on social media today and let us know. Maybe we gotta DM TJ for some photos or two paws. I don't know whoever her people are. I'm the spokesperson for Lola Vice, and all I know is we got the damn job done. And that's all I gotta say. Add her to your Reina rankings. Respect history. We don't get to see it that often. You guys like watching LeBron James, right? It's history. This is no different. It's history. That's all.
Well, there we have it. I won't do a bunch of fact checking because I don't want to take anything away from that. But there were a few others who actually made history in the month of April, like Athena. 500 days as the Ring of Honor Women's World Champion, 50-0. Then there's this little lady called Bianca Belair, who's now 4-0 at WrestleMania, the only undefeated. Well, I guess technically she's the first undefeated woman because the second one was on our team, and that's Jade Cargill. More history, yeah. But I see where you're saying, and congratulations to Lola. I thought that was cool. Now, the reason that I asked the question of who really won, because on the socials today, it's like it's the Natty Love Fest. Everybody is giving Natalya lots of roses and lots of flowers on a job well done.
She must be purchasing the same bots that Drake does.
Wow. And I will say that quite a bit of it started with a tweet that she dropped. And the tweet that she dropped, what did it say? Where is it? Oh, it said, here it is. It said, "I'm sick of pretending I haven't always been main event material. I'm as hungry, talented, and ambitious as any of them here, and tonight I wanted to prove it." And lots of people responded with some very kind things to say about her. And so I think it's interesting. I'm not sure that I thought after this match it would turn into a thank you Natty kind of day, but it has certainly turned into a thank you Natty kind of day. So thought that was very, very interesting.
Did my client retire Natalya Neidhart? Is that what we're saying?
No, I'm not saying that.
Because that is another accolade, if that's the case.
Oh, gosh.
Good God.
Oh,
all right.
Lord.
Somebody cool this man down.
Listen. So there's the photo. He obviously didn't see this other photo. If there was a sharpshooter last night, it just wasn't the finish, but there was.
What do you guys think about the ring post? Was she actually supposed to get a sharpshooter and just had to pivot? Talking about Natty.
I don't know. That's
I don't
interesting.
think so.
I feel like that was supposed to be like a tribute to Brett right there.
Yeah, I think it was the tribute, obviously, but I don't think it was the finish. I think there was just too much time left on, for TV time to make that the finish. But it was cool, even though it does not 100% effective, but still cool to see it.
For sure. All right, so from one bit of interesting historic news to some somewhat sad news, right before NXT went on last night, we heard from the artist now formerly known as Scripps, who kind of had a very cryptic message on Instagram and the socials, which basically showed him, dropping his 24/7 title, taking off the OTM things, and alluding to the fact that he is been released by WWE. So I want to just kind of provide some clarity because, what happens when these releases happen is, everybody gets mad at WWE. Why did they release him, et cetera, et cetera. Well, what's really happening here is that Scripps, it's not that he's been released. It's just that his contract is not expected to be renewed. Contract is supposed to expire at the start of June, and then he will be a free agent once that expires. So the deal is not expected to be renewed, hence him putting available June the 1st on that. So he was not fired, released. It's just that his contract wasn't renewed, which one could argue maybe that's a release, maybe it's not. I do want to ask, though, what were your thoughts on the WWE career of Scripps, and what do you think is next for him? Honey, we'll start with you.
I personally, I'm not gonna lie, I liked Reggie a lot better than Scripps or Reginald per se.
Okay.
I feel like it was a lot flashier in that sense, and we were able to see a lot of his character, and even his entrance alone as Reggie was pretty cool too. It was nothing like I'd ever seen before. I guess I wanted to see more of what they were going to do with OTM and Scripts and everything like that. I'm not sure what has happened, or maybe if it was just some dust settling in the wind. But I mean, they weren't really doing much with him to begin with, except for when he just had that match with the young OG when he debuted, right? So right. I mean, which was a really great match. But I feel bad, and I just hope that he's gonna go on to have a different kind of move probably for himself creatively. He has a bright future either way because he's still young. He's still got a lot of years on him, and he has great ability. So anybody would be silly not to take a talent like him. But I wish him well. I'm not sure what holds for him in the future, but I guess we'll see.
For sure. Jason.
He was super athletic. He did a lot of cool stuff that, I hadn't seen before, but unfortunately he was Carmella's wine guy. And then he came to NXT and he became Scripps. And then he started running with OTM. So, it's just a matter of, he's given a few chances, but this is a blessing because now he can go flourish. I could see him in TNA. Would love to see him in Mexico, not, with or without mask, doesn't matter. And then maybe down the road he comes back. But he's been entertaining. Like I said, the Carmella's wine guy, that just made me laugh. And then when it took me a minute to realize it was actually him as Scripps, I'm like, oh, this guy's cool. And then I realized, I'm like, oh, it's just Reggie. So, we all hate to see anybody lose a job. But, it's just his contract didn't get renewed. It wasn't a disciplinary thing. And like I said, doors, I'm sure, will be open down the road for him to return.
Seth, let me ask you this question, and this just really kind of popped up based on the previous answers. Do you think that his introduction as the sommelier actually kind of put a real challenge for him in his career, almost like, dare I say, a child actor who's really, really good at their initial role, and they're so good that when they hop in another role, you can't really see them as that. Do you think that kind of handicapped Scripps?
Maybe. Well, no, I think Scripps handicapped him overall. Just the bad costume and the mask and stuff like that. I think the Reggie stuff was cool because I think he was a sommelier but we didn't know how athletic he was. When he would get chased around the rings and you see him do these flips just to evade people during the women's matches, it was like, whoa, like, what is that?
Mm-hmm.
So I think they did a poor job of presenting him from that. I think the 24/7 title chases helped elevate him and show that athleticism a lot more. I think, honestly, the springboard into the ring, he did that way better than Sin Cara ever did.
Oh, yeah.
Like,
Oh,
ever. Yeah. And I think
Time.
I would say the demise of the 24/7 championship probably hurt him more than anything, because that was kind of a lane he was in where he can kind of show the athletics, because he's not one of these new NIL type athletes. He came from the circus.
Right.
Cirque du Soleil, I believe. And
Mm-hmm.
that shows a different side of athlete that mainly probably only Ricochet can do some of the things that he does in the ring.
Right.
I think the timing of this is poor, because he would probably be cookie cut for the speed division.
Oh,
I think the speed division would be perfect for him right now.
Mm-hmm.
But where they went wrong with Reggie, or Sydney, he's going by his real name now, and I love the video he did, kind of putting all his WWE accolades in the box.
Mm-hmm.
I think the scripts thing was terrible. I think the gimmick, the outfit, dead on arrival. Just is like, we knew it was him, and it's like, well, why are you doing this?
Mm-hmm.
Like, why are you wearing this mask? It's a terrible looking mask. I think that hurt his credibility. And this reminds me kind of what he leaves behind with OTM. And I kind of feel like the emergence of Jada Parker and OTM kind of made them feel like he was expendable. Kind of reminds me of when Stokely left the Creeds and Ivy and Diamond Mine.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think OTM kind of has the same gravity as Diamond Mine to still elevate themselves in that way without Stokely. So we'll see. I think Jada Parker is obviously the star of the group right now, and we'll see if her ascension kind of keeps that OTM stable afloat. But yeah, when the scripts came about, that's what killed everything.
Interesting. Okay. So yeah, needless to say, I'm intrigued, and I think what was it? Boza said this, and I like this. He says, I think this is the best way to get let go from WWE. It wasn't that he did anything wrong. He's being smart and can start taking bookings after June 1st. And for those who may not know, the NXT contracts, when you are signed to that, it's usually a 30-day window when, in terms of a non-compete. But if you just write out the end of your contract, there is no non-compete, which is what's going to happen here for Scripps with his contract wrapping up on June 1st. So he'll be available literally to hop on to dates right after that, which I think is a good situation for him. So it's going to be interesting. Let's see. Eric says it's Jada's group now. I will say, I wonder if there's going to be a group.
Yeah.
Because what was interesting to me, I was interested to see last night on NXT. Okay, so what will OTM look like? And what was intriguing to me is we didn't see the tag team. We only saw Jada. And she was the first person to come out when it came to this whole conversation about the Women's North American Championship. So it's clear if they're putting her in that lane, there was already a tag title shot a while back for OTM, and, they were unsuccessful. What happens with them?
I would argue the tag team we saw debuted last night against the Good Brothers almost feels very similar to what they were doing with OTM as well.
I agree. Which makes things very interesting for OTM at this point. I wonder what they are going to have to do to be able to cement themselves and not be forgettable if that's the case. Let's see. Boza says, I don't know if OTM was to succeed. It felt like this was how they needed to get Jada on TV. Jada just needs reps. Her in-ring presence is growing. I'm going to counter that and just say OTM was created before we ever saw Jada on TV. Jada showed up on TV. The very first time we saw her was part of the Breakout tournament. And when we saw her, everybody said, oh yeah, she's the one. and it just seemed like a natural fit for her to be with OTM. And they put her with OTM, but she didn't even need OTM to get over. She was over first match. So I don't think that there was that correlation. I think they just said, this is something that makes sense. We're also in that era of the Rhea Ripleys and the strong woman dominating a faction. So it made sense on the NXT space. And unfortunately for Scripps, he ended up being the mouthpiece, but it was clear when Jada showed up, you're not going to have two mouthpieces in this particular scenario. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with him. Now, yes, sir.
I hope we don't do another thing where we just kill off a character with the D'Angelo family. With
I thought that might be the way to do it, but
I hope we don't do that again.
That's hilarious. I mean, whenever you lose your contract, you just meet up with the D'Angelo family and they handle it. But from one exit to an entrance, we have late breaking news that Eric Rowan has apparently signed with WWE. Now, you'll remember a few weeks back, there were some rumors about Eric Rowan because he had mysteriously stopped taking independent bookings, wasn't able to do it, et cetera, et cetera. And now the news is dropped that he has signed. When we will see him, we don't know, but it seems to only make sense that between this and all of the random QR codes that are showing up everywhere on WWE television, it feels like it's just a matter of time before we get a Wyatt presentation of some kind. I can't even call it a Wyatt family reunion, but we can call it some sort of presentation. And I also wonder, and as I say that, it just hit me, the return of Braun Strowman Monday night, could this be looped in to all things Wyatt as well? Don't know. We'll see. So. I do think that whatever Braun Strowman does, he should cut his hair. That's another story.
Oh, you didn't like the hair?
Oh, God, no.
Nah, you should have stayed bald.
Think about how long he took to grow that back. Remember the
it wasn't
thing?
It wasn't styled very well, and it just was like, no, something here doesn't fit.
I thought it
worked.
As
long as
Rowan don't come back carrying around any cages or kennels, like we're good.
Oh, please. That was a very weird time, and we never did find out what was in there, did we?
In that bag, it was some fake toy spider. Apparently,
yeah, it was like
it was so stupid.
The reveal was awful.
So stupid. God, how far we've come since then.
We certainly have come very, very far. That's probably a good space to talk about this here, because that was clearly during the Vince McMahon era, and it's certainly one of those kind of wild and woolly Vince McMahon thoughts. And apparently during that time, a certain Gunther, who was known as Walter, apparently was not interested in the WWE. He went on to an interview with our friends over at Gorilla Position, and in there, he was very open about the fact that he did not want to come to the United States because he did not like the WWE product. One of the things that he said was, quote, people know that for a long time I did not want to go to the US. The product before Triple H was not what I enjoyed. I just didn't want to be a part of that. I am who I am, and that's what I can do best. A big part of that is I need to have my time in the ring, have time to put on the matches that I put on. That chance would not be there under the old regime, which I think is a very powerful statement coming from the longest reigning Intercontinental Champion in history. What are your thoughts, guys, on this statement from Gunther and the fact that there is clearly, from the mouths of the wrestlers in WWE, a difference between Vince McMahon's WWE and Triple H's WWE?
I mean, honestly, I think it says a lot that because of the way he was carried in NXT, I think Triple H was very hard pressed on Vince McMahon to actually keep that going for Gunther at moving up into the main roster. So maybe Triple H had a hand in that a lot back behind the scenes. Otherwise, we wouldn't have the longest reigning Intercontinental Champion ever in history being Gunther. he's someone who carries himself very highly, as he should. He's been around the world. He's been a multiple time champion in different places, different countries, and he's still on top of his game even without a title. So just think about that, and for him having a reign that he had in NXT, going into becoming the longest reigning Intercontinental Champion in history with 666 days alone, and he's already set for future Hall of Famer status, and he's definitely on his way to getting some more gold, because obviously we know it doesn't end at Intercontinental Championship, but usually when they put that title on you, that's saying this is going to be a guy who's going to carry his weight worth in gold later on down the road. So I mean, it's no surprise hearing something like this, obviously, from what we know, everything that's been said about the Vince McMahon era and things like that, things that are now coming out, but we are officially in a new era. I'm just really surprised to actually hear these words coming from Gunther himself, being that Vince McMahon had carried him so healthily in the roster, in the main event roster. But I'm sure Triple H had a hand in that, just to make sure that they didn't tarnish his reputation.
Well, to that point, I think looking at timelines, it's interesting to see who's where, right? So during all things NXT, that was all Triple H's project. And so obviously, whether it was NXT UK or the Black and Gold brand, which again, Gunther, Walter flourished under very well. Timelines are interesting. He won the Intercontinental Championship in June of 2022 when he defeated Ricochet. It was July of 2022 where Vince McMahon was out and Triple H entered creative. And Triple H never left creative. So that means this entire championship run has been under Triple H's watch for Gunther, which I think speaks
Rightfully
volumes.
so.
It speaks volumes, timing being what it is. Said man, what are your thoughts on Gunther's statements here?
It's a ringing endorsement of the era that we're in, because I'm pretty sure he kept a close ear to everything. And if you remember his NXT UK days when he was doing the historic reign, like he was very adamant about not coming to the States. It was like very. I feel like the States, we wanted him stateside, and he was just like, no, I'm cool over here. I'm comfortable over here. And he was just putting on these great performances, great matches. And I would venture to say that his NXT 2.0 time wasn't even booked extremely well. The 2.0 time was kind of a miss of what we loved about Walter. And then that was during the name change of Gunther at the time. He lost to Braun Breaker, I believe, clean.
Correct.
But when he was in NXT UK and he came over, and I think I just saw this video floating around because the anniversary of when the Undisputed Era attacked Imperium overseas. That was the feeling that you have when you see Gunther on screen. And under Triple H, he's been able to do some amazing things. So I think Triple H maybe had a handshake deal with him saying, hey, I'm going to take care of you. Just trust me. And he trusted. And now look who we are.
I love to see it. Jason, your thoughts?
This guy is the definition of professional. I mean, he stuck to his guns, didn't want to come over. Then he got here. They changed his name and he ran with it. The work that he did to get into the shape that he, is now in is unbelievable. And of course, with the reign that he had and the way he looks and the way he acts, I'm not surprised, but I'm glad he stuck to his guns, because had he not, who knows what Walter Gunther might have become under Vince McMahon.
True. It likely would not have been what we have seen. And I think that's significant for sure.
Do you guys think he could be face of the company one day with all the international travel they're doing?
I think he could.
Absolutely.
I think he could. He is the throwback to the kind of champion that built the WWE. And I'm talking pre-Hulk Hogan. I'm talking the Bruno Sammartinos, the Pedro Moraleses. He kind of fits that bill of no frills, but I'm going to wrestle in such a way where you go, that's clearly the number one guy. I hate to use these names, but names like Tom Brady aren't necessarily names that for glitz and glamour and flash, because of their ability. you know, and you go, he's that guy. He's going to make a comeback. Okay. I got to give it to him. He's the greatest, you know. Gunther is in that line. He's not the entertainment element. He's the wrestling element. And I think it's interesting now that WWE, amid many of its, you know, nomenclature, brand changes, where they're now talking pro wrestling and calling it professional wrestling. And they're being very intentional about it. Who ends up being the face? It's okay now for a wrestler to be the face of the company, which I think bodes very well for the future of Gunther.
And if WWE Films decides they want to do a James Bond movie, they have their villain right there.
Oh, absolutely. Hands down.
I mean, I'm not going to lie. I think Kaiser has the potential to be even more of a Bond villain than Gunther. You know, when he did that thing to Kofi where he ran around and jumped.
Yeah.
You know, my fantasy booking was him do that a couple times in a row. And then Gunther's like, dude, you got to chill out. What's your deal? And then he does it to Gunther, and it would have been Gunther and Kaiser at Mania for the Intercontinental title. But yeah, I mean, jokingly, of course, but the guy is great looks, could be a ultimate heel, I think, if given the chance, and a Bond villain at the same time.
That's great. That's great. Special Nobody says he got in tremendous shape, which he did. He lost a whole Wesley amount of weight. That's great. Boza says, I thought Gunther would have been traded to SmackDown. He and Cody would have a great build-up and be a great feud. I think both Gunther and anybody could make a great feud. Gunther and Priest, I think, would be something that would be really cool. Dylan says Gunther was basically the face of the company since Roman wasn't there all the time. I mean, we did see Gunther quite a bit. Let's see. We've got a question here. Do we think that the networks, Netflix and USA, had anything to do with the draft picks?
Maybe.
That's a really good question.
That is. Yeah, no, it's not impossible.
There's a part of me that does feel more Netflix than USA, since USA already knows what they're getting into with WWE. I think the Netflix piece, I definitely think there was a thought, maybe not necessarily from Netflix, but for WWE to go, who do we want on Netflix? Who do we think will help? Because we got to know, I mean, obviously they're going to push every show they have, but the Netflix thing, they absolutely want to be a huge deal. So I and it wouldn't surprise me if between now and January, there's some more people that find their way on to Monday Night Raw. And certainly I wouldn't be surprised if there's some of those people are from NXT if they are ready.
I can totally see Netflix being like, we want Rey Mysterio.
Yeah. Oh, I could definitely
see that.
Yeah.
What about Cody? I mean, I understand that he's the face of the company with the title for SmackDown, but wouldn't you think a brand new venture like, you know, the WWE on Netflix, the top guy would be on the Netflix show?
Well, to that end, I would say January is still a cool 7 months from now, 8 months from now.
Okay.
You know what I mean? It's still 8 months from now. So there are lots of ways to make certain changes. And we'll kind of, this is actually a good place to kind of skip here, because another piece of news that dropped before we came on, which I don't know what to do with this. There was a Spaces on Twitter that involved, you mentioned Cody along with Triple H. And the question was asked about WrestleMania 41.
Oh,
Triple H said, we will know very, very soon where WrestleMania will be. So my thought now is, if WrestleMania ends up as it's been proposed, potentially in May, which obviously pushes it a month out, now makes me wonder, number one, does the Royal Rumble stay in January? Does it move perhaps to February or maybe even March, you know, to not have too long of a buildup between then and there? But then my next question is, what could they do with some of the other PLEs and opportunities that would create space for someone to go to another brand? You know, so there's some interesting things that are potentially out there.
I think the Rumble stays in January. I don't think one more month of build would be necessarily a bad thing if the Mania moves, 1 month.
Exactly.
That would mean almost a 4-month build, but it could
one
happen.
more month of build could make them do the King of the Ring, Queen of the Ring tournaments earlier and culminate at WrestleMania.
Nice.
That's not a bad idea at all.
You have more room and more opportunity for more people
more
to get matches on the card.
More meaningful matches that way.
So Boza says Wrestling Observer newsletter said within the past week that WrestleMania 41 will be in Vegas May the 4th and 5th. I'm sorry, but I really don't give much credence to Wrestle Observer and Dave Meltzer. He's gotten it wrong too many times.
You want WrestleMania in Vegas on Cinco de Mayo? Listen.
Oh Lord.
Oh my goodness.
Listen.
That didn't even dawn on me. Oh my God.
You know how insane that would be?
Not to mention the whole May the 4th be with you. People dressing up like Starship Troopers and dressing like Jedis going to Mania. That'd be pretty awesome though. I'm not gonna lie.
But May the 4th and 5th this year is Saturday, Sunday. So May the 4th and 5th next year would either be Friday, Saturday, or Sunday, Monday. So we'll have to see about all of that. But there goes Dave Meltzer. Let's see. There was something else. Boza says if Mania is in May, there'd be a 10-week gap. I can see them sticking Roadblock in there so they don't have a long gap. I think that this is a great opportunity to see how creative WWE can be with all of this. And what we have learned is there's always a plan. I'm looking forward to that. Okay, so speaking of plans, and I'm way out of order here, and that's okay. I think I'll end with that. Interesting news on the AEW front. Very interesting news. Taz dropped a tweet today that I think has concerned a lot of people. So if you remember a couple of weeks ago, there was this moment in the ring where Taz got in the ring to try to broker this conversation between Hook and Chris Jericho. Chris Jericho at some point pushed Taz, and Taz ended up falling. And I think commentary are the ones who let us know that Taz, has been having some issues with his knees, and it's not been good. Well, Taz dropped this tweet, and for those of you who are watching, you can read what it says. For those of you who are listening, it goes like this. It says, went to a highly acclaimed orthopedic surgeon yesterday to discuss my knee. It's been brutal for a couple of years. He did testing and x-rays, so both of my shoulders and knees need to be replaced. Jesus. 4 joints. I am not doing this right now. I'm going to keep trying regenerative procedures and try to suck it up dealing with the pain. Now, he wanted to be clear. This is not from bumps. It's from training too heavy like a caveman trying to be big. I'm posting this for today's wrestlers. Please be smarter. Times have changed for the better. What do you guys think of this news from Taz?
Joint replacement is no joke, and I know because I have 2 artificial hips.
Wow.
And it's the first time I had it done, my recovery time was 5 months because it was the first time I'd had it. I learned to walk again and all that stuff. But then when I had to have the second one done 4 years later, my recovery time was 3 months because I kind of knew what my limits were. I could walk. I knew I could walk. The first time I was like, I don't know what's going to happen if I walk 50 feet, that type of deal. So the fact that he is putting this off, obviously, I imagine that this doesn't turn into not to be insurance podcast, but pre-existing conditions and stuff like that. I'm sure that there is some sort of healthcare in AEW that could take care of majority of this, but hopefully he's not doing it right now because he wants to remain in the workplace and not some other reason why he's not doing it.
Yeah, you always hate to hear stories like this, and especially coming from a guy and a legend like Taz that we've known and loved for all these years. I mean, who knows? I wouldn't know because I've never had surgery or anything like that, but 4 joints and hip and knees and shoulders need replacements. It just doesn't sound good. I mean, I'm not sure why you would put something like that off, but you know, hopefully he gets on that. You know, I wouldn't wait too long.
I'm actually excited to hear that he's trying different forms of alternative medicine. I mean, you don't always have to go under a knife, so I don't know if he's just trying the rehab route, PRP, injections, things like that, trying to exhaust all his options. So it sounds like he's in the know of the journey that he's in, and he's trying to do things the more holistic way first before saying like, hey, let me just replace the stock parts in my body, you know? So I'm glad he's at least in tune with everything and trying different methods. We don't know how bad as far as like being able to do commentary, stuff like that. Is it hard when he walks up the stairs or down? I'd be interested to know what that feels like for him. If it's something that could be managed without going over the knife, I'm an advocate for it. So I'm glad he's doing his research on that.
There's a very interesting tweet that I wish I had captured for you guys from Scotty Riggs, who was one half, of course, of the American Males. And he suggested that Taz contact DDP and enroll in DDP yoga. Now, I will tell you, from being here in Atlanta, from participating in DDP yoga, DDP has literally saved lives and helped a lot of people with joint issues. And Scotty Riggs looks incredible. If you guys get a chance to see him at any point, he looks amazing. And he has gone through DDPY, and a number of other wrestlers and names have. So hopefully Taz is able to contact either DDPY or find some sort of alternative method that will work for him. I am leaning towards your thought, Jason, that, you know, he may not want to be off of television at this point, because he really has established a role as a great commentary authority there in AEW. He has a very unique balance. He's the only wrestler, you know, in terms of on Dynamite doing commentary. And so I'm always a proponent that when a wrestler who can talk does great commentary, they lend something to that commentary space because you've been there. You know what this hold feels like. You know what these strategies should do. So he lends something very, very important. And I'm pretty sure he does not want to not be in that space. So certainly our thoughts and prayers are with Taz for not just a speedy recovery, but, you know, that's got to be painful just to operate, period. You know, if you need new knees and new shoulders, that's a lot. That's a lot.
I think Dynamite suffers if we lose Commentary Jones, you know.
Agreed. No, seriously. I really agree with that, because even if you were to stick Jericho in there, he doesn't do what Taz does. And Jericho is a veteran, but he doesn't do what Taz does. So there is that. Now, this is an interesting piece of news. The final boss, got to say it that way, The Rock has once again entered into a partnership with the creators of Dark Side of the Ring. And this, you know, the last time they came together, they did a whole docuseries on Tales from the Territories, where they talked about the territory days like Memphis and several other territories, which was pretty awesome. Well, in this particular case, they're partnering again for a 4-part docuseries called Who Killed WCW? Now, this is interesting to me because there have been, I think, multiple documentaries and interviews about the demise of WCW. We've seen this. There was a whole DVD series that WWE did. They've done a number of, you know, follow-ups on that type of thing. What's interesting to me, if you guys have not seen the trailer for this, the players involved in this make this very interesting to me. So The Rock is speaking on camera. Booker T is speaking on camera. Eric Bischoff is on camera. Kevin Nash is on camera.
Wow.
They've got some major players from here. So it's not kind of like an independent, you know, when I say independent, as in like people who knew the players who knew the players. No, these are the players. And the trailer is interesting because at the end of it, Kevin Nash, Goldberg is involved too, for those who like Goldberg. Kevin Nash said something that definitely looped me in. And he said, do you want the real story or the BS story? Which now makes me wonder, which story have we been getting all these years? So this is going to be interesting. It's going to premiere on Vice TV starting June the 4th, which Vice does a great job with these kinds of things. Vice is currently in season 5 of Dark Side of the Ring. Last night's episode was on the Sandman, which I thought was a very interesting one. The week before was on Sensational Sherry. We haven't talked much about this season of Dark Side of the Ring on here, but we probably need to start doing that. But Who Killed WCW is coming. Here is my quick question to you guys about Who Killed WCW. Do you think that we're going to actually learn anything new in this 4-part documentary?
I don't. I mean, with the people that you listed, yeah, there'll be a lot of insight, but I really would love to see Vince Russo.
He's in there too. I'm sorry. Yeah. Okay, Russo good. is in that one.
This makes me a little more interested just because to hear him and Bischoff together on camera, that's something I don't think we've ever seen regarding this subject. So I don't know what to expect, but now hearing that Russo and Bischoff are a part of this, okay, I'm in. I'll check it out.
I'm really intrigued to hear what Booker T and The Rock have to say. I definitely think we probably might get different perspectives on certain stories, and I guess what their job is as the product and for the viewer to take it in however they want and figure it out for themselves. But I'm wondering what The Rock would have to say, like if he's on camera and being interviewed for WCW, and he was literally never a part of WCW, but maybe there's some things that he knows that we don't know. We might learn something new. So I'm really intrigued to see what happens with this episode. I didn't even know the trailer was out already.
Yes, trailer's out. Said, what do you think?
There's so many tales of WCW. So I know that $7 doesn't like cheapen us when they dig up information, stuff like that. That's what makes me excited about it. I love good investigative journalism. So hopefully we get some new stories and input that are kind of first-person experiences. Because I mean, and maybe because $7 and The Rock don't cheapen us on their products, we will get more information because maybe they're paying the people for the interviews to actually tell the real truth. And I'm really interested to know, like, for somebody like Booker T, that's when I fell in love with him as a wrestler, because in WCW he was at his absolute peak as a character. So like, as WCW is ending, he's on this meteoric rise, and then the company gets bought. I'm interested to know like what that time was like for somebody like him that kind of have to jump ship and kind of have to become like Rock Light, And I think we'll learn more stories about that from those superstars from pretty much were carrying the product in those last days.
Yeah, he did.
What I also think is interesting, and let me just run to a couple of the comments here. Boza says, happy about this. This sounds like a spinoff of Dark Side. Dark Side is so good that I don't think they could tell the story of WCW in one episode. Yeah, for sure. Dylan says, I will be seated. MDB says only on camera, which I probably need to get more context for that one. Welcome aboard, Cousin Ron. Boza says between $7 and Dark Side, this will be a home run. I'm not sure 4 episodes will be enough. I'm really, and I think you could have a point there because there's such great storytelling that they do. I am interested to see how this goes. WWT might have to put on an after show for each episode. We might.
You know what? I'd be down for. I know you said we need to be talking about it more. I'd be down to do like a
Dark Side.
The Dark Side recap.
Yeah. Well, Boss Lady, I know you're listening somewhere from parts unknown. So, but remember, June the 4th on Vice is when this is going to premiere. So you guys make sure that you check it out. Okay, a couple of other quick stories, and then we'll be out of your way to get you ready for, of course, Dynamite. I mentioned Quick, and that, of course, is a great lead-in for WWE Speed. We saw the final semifinal match today on X. If you haven't, you can go and check it out. This concept of Speed, I think, is so interesting. Matches with 3-minute time limits. And so it's kind of all gas, no brakes. And I also find it interesting. I don't know if it's selfish or not, but only one commentator for this. That's super interesting to me. That, of course, is Corey Graves. So the semifinal match, the first match saw Ricochet get a win over JD McDonough. And in this one, I don't know. Well, you might want to still go watch how this happens. But it's Johnny Gargano gets the win over Bronson Reed. You guys have to kind of see how this happens. And so now it's setting up the finals, which will air this Friday on X between Johnny Gargano and Ricochet, which is a dream match. The fact that it's only a 3-minute time limit.
That's just not even fair.
I can't wrap my brain around this. So definitely check it out. It's going to happen this Friday, I believe, at noon on X. So you'll definitely want to check that out. And then I know where I want to end. So quickly, I didn't do this. My bad. I thought we were going to preview Dynamite tonight. I'm sorry I didn't add the slides, but I can tell you that it is a 3-hour block of AEW tonight. Once again, it's going to be Dynamite followed by Rampage. We will see the return of Kenny Omega tonight, which I think should be very, very interesting.
Oh, that's right.
We'll also see there's some really cool matches. Mariah May is fighting. Who's she fighting tonight? Oh gosh,
it's not the Stardom girl, is it?
No, it is. Oh goodness, I am so sorry.
Hold on.
I'm gonna find it all. I apologize. I fil like I am not.
Bo's is saying it's Serena Deeb.
That is correct. It is Serena Deeb. So they're fighting tonight. Let's see. We have a few other things happening tonight.
We got Adam Copeland and Malachi Black. I know that's going down.
Well, it's not necessarily Malachi Black. It is a member of the House of Black. We don't know which one it's going to be. Tony Schiavone the other night said it was Buddy Matthews. So I don't know who it's going to be. But Adam Copeland, too many Adams, is going to be fighting a member of the House of Black. Now, this was interesting to me because I kind of forgot he was around. Brian Cage, who I forgot is still managed by Prince Nana, is fighting Claudio tonight, which I think that should be quite the matchup. Orange Cassidy's going to talk to us tonight. And then Samoa Joe returns tonight. He's fighting Isaiah Cassidy. I'm interested to see what Samoa Joe is going to bring to the table tonight. Again, that is a big episode of Dynamite.
Jericho and Shibata as well.
Say it again.
Jericho and Shibata for the FTW.
Oh, yeah.
Correct.
For the World Championship.
Yeah, for the world. And then Boza is there. Jay White and Dante Martin on Rampage. So 3 hours of AEW television tonight. And I heard we might be getting a new authority figure in AEW since Tony Khan can't travel. And they're in Winnipeg now, so we'll see what that looks like. And I agree, Dylan. The Shibata translator app gimmick is incredible. The things he says, I'm like, sir, you're not supposed to know that. So that's pretty awesome. Last but not least, this one came from left field, but really didn't. If you pay attention to TNA, then you know that if you say his name, he will appear. We believe in Joe Hendry. Yes, we do. And Joe Hendry has done some pretty incredible things, including that theme song has now gone to #1 on the UK iTunes service, which is significant if you think that it surpassed Hozier and Post Malone. Oh, yeah, and Taylor Swift. It's kind of crazy when you think about that. But this Joe Hendry thing is really a thing. And so these are some of the great things happening over at TNA. If you guys aren't watching, Joe Hendry has been catching on like fire. And this theme song is one of the things. And we just love to see it. So
I gave congratulations.
Yes. Yes. And I mean, it's funny because wrestlers are now dropping different things about Joe Hendry and the song as well, which I just think is so super cool. So shout out to Joe Hendry. And it's actually really cool to see music and theme songs outside of WWE becoming very popular and flourishing. So we like to see that. Congratulations to Joe Hendry. All right. So then, let's find out how we can reach all the people. Jason, how can the people find you and all that you have going on?
Every Friday morning, That Wrestling Podcast at That Wrestle Pod. Me and three of my friends, I've been friends for 20 years. What started out as a group text and then Zoom sessions over the pandemic. We just hit 3 years, 4,000 subscribers on YouTube. And it's just a good time. It's just like you and your friends, except we record it. And sometimes things will go a little off the rails because of somebody on the show, but check it out this Friday, usually around 6 a.m. Eastern. It goes live wherever you get your audio podcast and on our YouTube channel at That Wrestling Podcast.
Awesome sauce. Awesome sauce. Sed, how can the people find you?
You know what? You guys know my socials. I won't belabor you with that. You know how to find me. I have nothing to promote other than go online, find your favorite Lola Vice moment, picture, thirst trap on the gram. Send me those things. That's what I want to see. Go find your favorite Lola Vice content and retweet them, like them on socials, do that type of thing. And always, you know what? 2 hashtags I want to promote today. I'll give you that. Hashtag blame Jacob and Lawrence. And also hashtag heal TK. Just tweet those out for me, please.
The gloves
this
are
is going to be great. This is going to be great. Honey, how can the people find you?
You can find me here Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays with the WWT Live crew. You can also find me at the NXT post show. I'll pop in every now and then. Also, on Fridays, we have my Honey SmackDown watch along every Friday at 8 o'clock. So make sure you tune in and talk some wrestling-ish with me there. Follow me TikTok Wrestling with Honey, Instagram Wrestling with Honey, Facebook Wrestling W Honey, and don't forget to follow, like, and subscribe the new YouTube that's going to be up and running soon, the Wrestling with Honey podcast. And and I'm going to be doing a review of Becky's book along with TK where we do this monthly book club thing that we're talking about. So make sure you guys stay tuned for all that fun stuff.
I like it. I like it. By the way, shout out to TK because I think she really just turned me on to something I did not know existed, which was audiobooks being part of your premium subscription with Spotify. That has changed my whole world because I just had no idea. I didn't even think about it. So needless to say, I am giving Becky's book a listen, and this is brilliant. I just think this audiobook situation is brilliant. It's just so good. You guys can find me, of course, at Bonnerfied across all of the socials. You can check out my commentary work with Southern Honor Wrestling and IWE on IWTV. Got a big show coming up with Southern Honor Wrestling this Friday, where our special guest matchmaker is a certain award winner named Paul Walter Hauser. Nice. He'll be with us. That's going to be amazing. And he has somehow gotten involved in a big war chamber match that's going to happen. 2 rings, 1 giant cage. I think we're going to be talking about this for a while. And strangely enough, Friday's show is the 5-year anniversary of a crazy show that happened at Southern Honor where Cody, Chris Jericho, Kenny Omega all showed up right ahead of the very first Double or Nothing. So very excited to see what will happen on the 5-year anniversary of that. You can check out my commentary work with the Nightmare Factory and Turnbuckle Championship Wrestling on the Nightmare Factory YouTube page. You can also check out my work with All Caribbean Wrestling on their YouTube page as well. My work with Ashe Wrestling at AsheWrestling.com. Some cool things on their socials. And for those of you who might have missed it last night, you can go and check out the replay of the Shad Gaspard Memorial Cup Tournament. It is available right now on Triller TV, formerly known as Fight TV. Had the privilege of doing commentary for that. So make sure you guys.
You did great, by the way. I watched a little bit while I was cooking dinner, man. You killed it, man. Congratulations, man. That was so great.
That means a lot. That really, really means a lot. Thank you. So make sure you guys check that out. And of course, it seems like my time here is growing on WWT Live. They're adding shows and all the things. So be sure to check it out. Speaking of WWT, you can check out Women's Wrestling Talk at WW Talk Pod across all the socials. Interviews, all sorts of great content and the like are there. Also, check out the website, www.talkpod.com. All kinds of great content that you want to check out. And we now have all sorts of post shows happening here at Women's Wrestling Talk. WOW post show, NXT post show, of course, pay-per-views and PLEs, Ring of Honor post show. There's a post show for almost anything you can imagine. I think there's still the watch along happening with Total Divas, and like there's just all kinds of fun things happening here. So make sure you guys check it out. Shout out to everybody in the chat, Dylan and Cousin Ron and Special Little Nobodies and Boza and Eric and who else am I missing? I feel like I'm missing somebody.
Now,
yeah, that's Cousin Ron and let's see. The boss lady was hiding in here somewhere, so I see her. And whoever else joined us, whose name I didn't mention, charge it to my head, not my heart, and even to my eyes. But it is great to have you guys with us. We'll be back here for WWT Live on Friday. So make sure you hang out with us here at Women's Wrestling Talk, the #1 women's wrestling network on the planet. Peace.
Thanks for joining WWT. Don't forget to like us on all social media platforms at WW Talk Pod. Like and subscribe on all video and audio platforms, like yesterday, my G. And check out our website at www.talkpod.com. Thanks for watching Women's Wrestling Talk, the #1 women's wrestling network on the planet.